one of the most interesting conversations that we want to have here on Pivot Point is to talk about retirement. I know it's too early in the conversation, but you are the retirement king, Mr. Sebastian Zuze. You have been having these conversations with different people in different places, but we want to take that conversation to another level, which is retirement for my vendor, my entrepreneurs. But before we even begin that conversation, maybe you could break down what is retirement for us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Indeed, many people call me the retirement expert, and sometimes I have to explain how I became a retirement expert.
Yes.
Because, I lost my father actually due to retirement. My father underwent a form of retirement that a lot of employees, entrepreneurs, and even various walks of life, we really don't focus on it, which is retiring due to circumstances.
Okay.
So when my father underwent that, I had to reflect, and all that I'll share with you today is based on personal experiences. I started interviewing people, trying to understand what this retirement is all about. And I've come up with a definition. I actually ran a program called Redefining Retirement. So the question, like we have rightfully asked, does retirement happen to vendors, to entrepreneurs, to musicians, to soccer players?
To media people.
To media people as well. Even, to those who run their own businesses. Because we've been told when you retire, you start doing So what happens to that guy who is already doing their own things?
Yes.
And when you look at it, a good definition of retirement, or the one that I would give, is retirement is a separation between the employer and the employee, or between a business owner and their business. So that definition tells us that we will retire, we will separate. So retirement is not just about age. One of the things that makes my heart skip a bit is when I hear young people say, it's too early, I'm still around, I'll think about it, or I'm not thinking about it, because they think retirement is about 60 or 65 or 70. And then you get the old people saying, I wish I knew what I know now. So we need to get our definition right so that we can save both the old and the young. So it's a separation. So it will happen to everyone.
Ooh, unfortunately for me, I don't think it will happen. I would rather die sitting on the mic because I am passionate about this. But there is an element in our earlier conversations where you said there is something called work and there is something called a job, if I got that right.
Yes.
And
yes.
Retirement sets in a way in my job area or in the work that I do.
So, like I've said, so retirement, I've said, is a separation. So we have to, let's go back to our own language. Our language is very rich in terms of defining these things. We talk about singaperi chinoshura, okungapeliyo kuyahlola. So that tells us that everything that we do has to come to an end. Now, what is a job? So when we get trained, when we start our careers, remember, go back to high school, how we ended up doing what we do, as much as we can say, this is my passion. Sometimes it was where we were selected. It was called screening. Times it was screen one. Like in myself, I was screened in the sharp and my sciences. So I ended up training as a chemical engineer. But now...
Wait.
Yes.
Retirement, chemical engineering. How are the two connected?
I transitioned. That's why I'm saying retirement is from your job to your work. Okay. So when you look at it, these guys tried to guess what I'm good at or what my life assignment is. You see, everyone has a life assignment. It is your life assignment that lights you up. I enjoy like what you guys do. We're just talking how you light up when you're doing this. You can see it's like your life assignment. But what will happen is that you will transition. And when you transition, it's not like you go home and sit. You will see that this job was preparing you for your work. Your work is your life assignment. Your job is what you trained to do. And your job is very important because without your job, you cannot transition to your life assignment. We all have a life assignment, something to achieve.
While I'm preparing for retirement, now you've opened up the whole conversation. How do I identify, this is my life assignment? Because I think that's what scares us the most when we start having conversations on retirement. How do I identify my life assignment.
Very good. Because without identifying your life assignment, you cannot retire. So how do you actually do it? There are various ways you do it. The first one, which is obvious if you're employed or whatever you are doing, do more than what you are asked to do. You see, it pains my heart when I see employees who say, maybe I'm not paid well, so I'm just going to do the bare minimum because they don't pay me well.
Salary yapirira apa ndogumira.
Ndogumira ipapo. It's salary. You know, I actually trained some guys who say to me, because salary it lasts 2 weeks, so I just work 2 weeks, and in the other 2 weeks I'm not working. You see, I'm just moonlighting. When you do that, you're actually sabotaging yourself. The most important thing is do more for your employer. And maybe at this point I can copy those who are in the church. They say, if you cannot be trusted with little, how can you be trusted with more? So when we do more at our current jobs, we are preparing. It's a good way to transition. You see, the other thing is to look back at the road you have traveled. You see, they call it connecting the dots.
Okay.
Every one of us, we have a history, we have an experience that we've gone through. I was just speaking to you that in my former job, I was a director, speaking to a lot of people, you know, because of the nature of that job.
Yes.
And now that I speak, I train various people. Now I was talking about, we have even opened a branch in Zambia. Yeah. I'm speaking to a lot of people, but my job trained me for this. So when you connect the dots, you begin to understand why you went to every station. Because every station you passed through was preparation for your work, which is your life assignment.
So retirement for a lot of us, or I don't want to speak for other people. Let me speak for myself and say retirement for me, when I'm looking and reflecting, also based on personal experience. My mom worked for a financial institution for years. I can safely say I think she was one of the longest serving employees at 40 years. But when we look at her in retirement, it feels like a death sentence. She doesn't have to say it. You look at the mega monies she's getting, and I'm wondering at this particular point, retirement has always been associated with vanu shanda muma big companies. But the conversation I want us to have is, what is preparing for retirement for an entrepreneur? For mbuya varikutengesa madomaskudo tito. What does retirement look like for those people in that area of work?
So you rightfully make a good observation that many people struggle in retirement.
Yeah.
You know, even myself, I'm retired. I retired at 46. Now I'm 53. I went through a struggle as well. It's not just financial. There's a lot of issues around retirement, whether soccer players, musicians, directors, general workers, entrepreneurs. We all go through a bit of shaking. Because we have to understand the equation, the success equation in retirement. So let me give you the success equation. How does someone become successful in retirement or thrive in retirement? And before I even give that equation, is to also highlight that we are going through what I call a VUCA environment. The environment we are retiring into is no longer the retirement of yesteryear. You know, we used to say retirement is mujgandigere. And when you observe now, you then begin to question whether is it really mujgandigere or mujgandimire. You know, a lot of people say mujgandimire.
Yeah.
So the success equation, and this is important for institutions, employers, everyone to understand. The success equation is retirement success is equal to opportunity plus preparation. Okay. Opportunity plus preparation. Now, we will all get the opportunity to retire. That opportunity comes to everyone. If there's an opportunity which everyone will not miss, is an opportunity to retire. The opportunity to retire is because retirement is a transition, remember. It's not death, it's not the end. It's repurposing. I actually say it this way, retirement is repurposing. So I was a chemical engineer operating, I served well, I'm sure I achieved quite a lot for my employer then, but I repurposed. So I'm still relevant, but in another purpose area. Then the question is preparation. How are we preparing people for retirement? How are entrepreneurs preparing for retirement? How are musicians preparing for retirement. You know, when we talk of musicians, I see a lot of musicians struggle, you know, beyond, you know, singing, having blessed us with songs. Some of songs that uplifted our spirits, but vakutambudzika in retirement. So here is what we need to understand. Preparation starts early. I actually say it this way: proper preparation prevents poor performance. So when you see people struggle in retirement, they are not properly prepared. And proper preparation then requires you to look at the financial side of retirement. Then it looks also at the non-financial side of retirement. You know, mental preparation. You know, even if you had all the money and then you retired and then you didn't address the issue of mental preparation, it really shakes you. So when you say, how does my vendor not prepare, say my entrepreneurs, there are 4 outputs can actually prepare for retirement.
Yes.
The first one is own accommodation. The earlier you start looking at how can I have my own accommodation, having a place to stay. And this is where we need to celebrate our rural homes. A lot of us, when I say that, they are thinking of mutaundi.
Retirement kudara engeri vari kugara kutaundi avachaende kubasa vanenge vari ngori mumba mavemo.
And remember, if I can mention as well and accuse women, some women will say, andiende kumusha, andiende kumusha. So if we've got a rural home, please understand that is a good launch pad for your retirement. Even if you didn't want to go there, for those who say, I don't want to go there, but make it comfortable. These days you can do everything and build a good house there, have an own accommodation. And this is where we can also kickstart the industrialization of rural areas.
Yes.
You see, we can...
And it's a conversation that government has been having and pushing for to ensure that not only do we have rural industrialization, but people get inputs right at the source.
Correct. You know, when the skills, the knowledge, the exposure we have had, come to think about it, how do we start businesses, industries in the rural areas? You know, when we are working here in town, we get ideas, we get to establish network, we get the knowledge that we are getting, all these connections. When we relocate and have set up to have own accommodation in the rural areas, then we can utilize that to kickstart the industrialization of our rural areas. I mean, look at it, you can drill a bore. I mean, people talk about, there's no water. Maybe the ablution facilities in the rural areas are not as what I was used to. But we can all do this. We have knowledge now how to build good homes in the rural areas. The other thing you need, which is key for young people at any stage, old people, is total wellness management. You see, looking after your body early, making sure that both mental and physical health, you are attending to issues of your health, is a good retirement preparedness objective, yes. Because then you are retired and you don't have to burden whatever finances you have. You don't have to be going every time you're at a doctor's. So we need to be intentional. How am I managing my health? Am I stress? How do I manage stress? How do I keep socially connected? Mental preparedness, you know, making sure I'm always exercising. All those are critical. And also a very important one for how does a vendor, is having positive cash flow. Starting something. You know, do not shortchange your employer, but start something that will give you income. You see, when you are employed, don't conflict with your employer, but don't fail to see the opportunity to start an income-generating project. Because that becomes key in retirement. It can make sure, like I've mentioned in the case of your mother, to make sure there's money coming in even when she's retired.
The question now is, while I'm looking at how best I can diversify and find more revenue streams, kana ndichinge ndawana bindauko rangu, let me call it that, randiri kuita while I'm at work, I will retire from my work here at ZBC, and I'll start running my things. How do I then also set up a system where I retire from this? Because it feels almost like my transition, but at some point I have to take a back seat.
Very important. You this subject already you're showing, you understand it very well, because the systems are important, even for those who run their own businesses. For you to transition, one of the things holding us from transitioning is that we don't put systems. When you put systems, then the business can run. I was talking before we went live that there's a life assignment. In other words, there's a purpose that we were created to do. And this is, I know this sounds a bit like some people might think religion or so, but a human being has purpose, just like everything we see on earth has purpose. And part of your purpose, in fact, a major thing about your purpose is not just to come here and be accumulating things. I have a good car, I have a good house. Part of the purpose to make a contribution to the success of our country, of our communities. So when you start your own thing and you are comfortable, you go to the rural areas, you have transition there, you are running your own project there. Still you need to transition because there is a purpose which is time related. And remember, all of us would transition, the final transition, which is, leaving this world. That is the final transition. But we must have served purpose. So your purpose is a contribution which sometimes has nothing to do with how much am I getting, how much. Making a contribution, maybe you're looking after orphans, you're looking after old people, you're solving a problem in our country. There's so many social problems that you could solve. So that's how you transition.
So it's about identifying a problem which you can provide a solution to.
Excellent. It's about problem solving. Retirement, problem solving.
So in rounding up, what words of wisdom can you give to entrepreneurs? Can you give to even those that are working in the mainstream work environment for big institutions, to the vendor on the street? Because retirement is not selective of who it's targeting. What are the wise words that you can give to them in terms of starting out on the process?
So the issue is going back to say retirement is not death. Please remember, retirement is not death. The earlier you start thinking about retirement at any level, the better. Remember, you cannot create wealth without a retirement plan. Talk to your family about retirement. Make retirement to institutions. Make retirement at the center of your organization strategy. And very important, I want to also finish by quoting our president, His Excellency. He talked about in May 2022 that focus on total wellness management, occupational health and safety, then preparing employees for retirement. So just to say, let's have a national focus on preparing employees for retirement.
Thank you so much, Sebastian, for coming through and teaching me and schooling me about retirement. I look forward. I'm actually planning a rural home. I will need your certification. You said you once worked for a certain institution that deals with standards. So definitely, as I plan out and write my retirement plan, I want to certify.
Very good, very good. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity.